Welcome, Minister. We have time here, so this is great. So we just heard from your American counterpart the appreciation of the US government on Greece's reaction to the swift reaction, I would say, in response to the Ukraine crisis. And yesterday in your speech, you also mentioned the cost that Greece endures from this war in Ukraine and its stance it has taken. Of course, this war is a humanitarian crisis to begin with, and Greece also has a diaspora in Ukraine that is currently under siege in Mariupol and Odessa. So I would like your take on what the Greek government is doing to welcome these refugees, protect them where they are, and your take on the response of Greece in this crisis.
Well, thank you. And let me start by saying that this war is very close to our borders. Only a few hundred miles, it's the northeast border of Greece to the border of Ukraine. So it's really near. And Greece definitely feels the heat of the war. It feels the heat of the war not only because the security environment in Europe has changed, it had changed dramatically. It was, this war was like a wake-up call for Europe to start building up defense capabilities and realizing that we are not living anymore in this nice cloud of peace and stability, but we have to fight for our peace and stability. But furthermore, I think that it's important to highlight that the presence, as you rightly noted, the presence of a Greek diaspora of 120,000 people and more living in Ukraine of Greek descent, that in the area of Mariupol, and that they have been under siege for 2 weeks now, with hidden by severe gunpowder from the Russian tanks and guns, and these people are trying to save their lives. Joining them, there are two diplomats, Ambassador. We have the Counselor General Androulakis in Mariupol, and we have Doxis in Odessa. So these are brave diplomats who still there, keeping the flags of NATO, Greece, and the United Nations alive in this area. So far, we haven't seen a great pressure. Refugees coming into Greece. So far, we are talking about less than 10,000 people that have crossed our border, and we are ready to welcome them. We are prepared to welcome them, but definitely we want to see a humanitarian corridor being opened in the Mariupol area. So a lot of people that want to flee out, and we are going to be ready to welcome them in Greece. We have done that for people who weren't so close to us. Now that we're talking about people of Greek descent, definitely we are more prepared to welcome them, and the Greek society is much more prepared to welcome them.
Great to hear. Assistant Secretary Donfried mentioned that this might be a 9/11 moment for Europe. How do you see the unity in the transatlantic? How do you assess the unity in the transatlantic community that you've seen out of this crisis? And how do you evaluate how the security architecture of Europe has changed as a result of this crisis?
Well, it was a 9/11 wake-up call, as I told you as well, and everybody believes that it's a wake-up call for Europe. What it comes to be apparent in this crisis, as we see this crisis and this war being evolving, is definitely, first of all, that Europe needs to develop its defense capabilities. The second is that although others were saying that NATO was dead, I believe that NATO is alive and kicking and more needed than ever before. And the transatlantic ties that were strong should develop more. We cannot talk about European security without taking into consideration the US contribution to the European security. It's very far from our imagination to develop our own defense capabilities and security capabilities without the United States. I will tell you an example. Everybody in Europe thought that this war would never happen. The idea that we had in Brussels in talking to each other was that, you know, there was an over-exaggeration on the info provided about the moves of the military and everything that came out from Washington, and all the alarms that Washington was, you know, using to wake up the Europeans. But when it happened, everybody came to a conclusion that we can't do that alone, and we need to further develop these ties. That doesn't mean that we should abandon the idea of strategic autonomy of Europe. This strategic autonomy idea should be, let's say, joint. It will be a process of jointly develop our own defense capabilities, but without neglecting the Atlantic side of these capabilities.
In that light, how is the bilateral relationship between the US and Greece helping in that regard, especially for Greece's regional role? Because as this title of the conference is, the region, both Southeast Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean, how do you assess and where do you see the capabilities building there? I mean, obviously right now in the middle of the crisis, we have air carriers in the region. The Alexandroupolis port has been playing a role in this crisis. And of course, Suda Bay as always. But where do you see the next steps in the relationship going forward, especially on the military front?
What this crisis proven to be very important is that you always need to invest to allies that they are stable, they are there, they don't go away, or they are not allies a la carte, but they are committed allies, and this is important from Washington sides towards our region. The second is that when we're talking about democratic governments that are committed to common values of freedom, of democracy, of border security, this should be, and Greece is one of those partners that should be treasured by the US, and I think this is what we got the response also from Assistant Secretary, Deputy Assistant Secretary Dumfries before. And of course, what is also important is that a good alliance is based on values that are not actually jeopardize the security architecture of the region that they belong in. So any revisionist power shouldn't be viewed as a very strong and committed ally, because neither the United States nor Greece are revisionist powers. Said that, I think that it has been very important, and I would like also to congratulate Ambassador Payet for his effort in building up this MDCA that includes also the Alexandroupolis port that has been proven to be so important. I know from firsthand from our Bulgarians and Romanian friends how much they appreciate this expansion of NATO capabilities in Alexandroupolis as well. I think that it would be important to see also how we are going to expand into one of the islands of the Aegean, and Skiros was on the table till the last moment, and I think this should be reviewed again by the State Department and Defense Department, and how to develop more together with Suda Bay. And the last thing is that Greece is developing its defense capabilities with the new acquisition of new frigates, new airplanes, but also with several other projects that will actually make Greece one of the strongest nations in the area. And that brings us to our strategic coalition with Israel, with which we share also the same values, and actually may become the two more vivid and well-equipped democracies in that part of the world.
let's focus a little bit more on the Eastern Mediterranean and this 3+1 partnership that started with energy but has expanded way beyond that, and moving into electricity interconnectors now that are also capable of moving along electrons, green energy, and also in the field of defense, possibly other cooperation, disaster preparedness. We saw last summer, actually, Israel helping Greece during the wildfires. So I'm wondering, in this light, and given the focus in this town on this 3+1, both in Congress, but also in the administration and the State Department, where do you see this relationship, the 3+1, going further and deepening? What are the opportunities there that we still need to explore?
Well, the 3+1 is definitely a union or a cooperation based on common values, but also on common interests. And the interest that we have actually identified, and this was the energy cooperation among ourselves, now it has become more apparent that it's strategic for the energy sufficiency of European Union. What we are talking about Russia is that we cannot rely on Russian gas and oil. And this has become apparent because actually we come to an end to finance the war that is happening in our neighborhood. And this is a paradox. And we have to tackle this paradox. In order to tackle this paradox, we definitely have to explore all the other resources, the energy resources we have at reach. And one of the energy resources that a huge energy resource that we are having at reach is the Eastern Mediterranean basin. What has been found in the exclusive economic zone of Egypt, of Cyprus, and Israel. And it's of immediate, I think, of immediate urgency to address the issue how we are going to explore and direct these findings into Europe. We totally disagree with the idea that this project should be frozen for other reasons. I think this is the moment that this project should be put in the microwave, heated up, and put it into action. It would be the immediate response. And I think that this project is actually becoming more apparent from the talks that I'm having with my colleagues in the framework of the European Union. It's becoming more and more apparent that it's one of the projects that may solve the paradox that I told you before, that we rely on Russia, and at the same time, we actually spend a lot to defend ourselves from Russia.
Moving to Turkey and how you see its role in this current security crisis that we're facing. Obviously, the Greek Prime Minister met with President Erdogan in Istanbul. There was an agreement to improve relations, or rather an intention to improve relations. And the Turkish side also talked about the necessity or the responsibility of Greece and Turkey in protecting the European security. And the next day we had again the airspace violations that we have on a daily basis from Turkey. How do you view this going forward? What are the conditions for Greece and Turkey to really build this Aegean Sea of peace that the Turkish press was writing about after the meeting?
Well, let me do an exercise. I want to take off the hat of the Greek Minister of Foreign Affairs, the alternate Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I will come with the hat of a European actor or a transatlantic partner and see what is the role of Turkey in dealing with this crisis. And what we have accomplished so far in dealing with this crisis was the idea that for the first time, we have worked so hard together in order to put together a sanctions that are so harsh that actually are going to be felt heavily from Russia. What is the number one priority? Because everybody is asking itself, what is the number one priority now vis-a-vis the war in Ukraine? What we should do more? And I respond, no, what we should do more is make sure that what we have already agreed is being implemented. And this is for sanctions. Sanctions cannot be implemented while Turkey is not imposing them. Because actually it leaves a room, a window, or even a door of bypassing all these sanctions. Russians are coming in and out of Russia through the Istanbul airport. The oligarchs are parking their yachts in the Mediterranean, in the Turkish coast, and they can still enjoy their vacation. But this is not the important things. The things that are important is the banking sector sanctions, so through the expulsion from the SWIFT may be overridden through the banking system of Turkey. And the second thing is the exports that are for dual use or for critical use may be directed through Turkey. So if Turkey is not coming alongside with us in imposing this sanction, therefore these sanctions are not going to be so strong as are designed to be. Said that, I believe that with Turkey, we haven't moved forward in dealing with our problems. It's important that Premier Mitsotakis and President Erdogan met in order to calm down the tension and to take some of the heat that we are feeling every day. But that doesn't mean that we have come to any agreement to move forward. I think it was a productive meeting, very productive meeting, because definitely the semantics of our relation count a lot. And if we take out the semantics and we see the problems in cold blood, then we may start actually seeing things that will move forward. But definitely provocation should be out of the table. Irresponsible acts should be out of the table. And also a logic that violates the international law, like the one of the contesting the Greek islands and the sovereignty over the Greek islands in the United Nations, because we have placed some defense equipment on this and defense forces in these islands, should be out of question.
Minister Varavitziotis, thank you very much for your
Thank you very
time.
much.